ways that we all often try to get people to understand is what is risk. You want to manage risk, right? It's risk management. Well, what is risk? It's the possibility of a loss. Simple definition, possibility of a loss. It is the frequency times severity of an event. Accepting risk can also be a profit. Probably not in your business, but if you were in the business world, accepting risk, going out on an IPO. We talked about risk management. Risk management is the process of identifying those risks, analyzing, controlling, limiting, minimizing, doing everything you can to keep those risks from happening to you. What happens if they do anyhow? And they will. So if you have a loss in your school, what are your options? Anybody? Amount to all this. So you have property insurance. Property insurance is like your homeowners, right? Covers physical buildings and things, including contents, chairs, books, things like that. Inland marine coverage. We know what inland marine coverage is. What?
What?
No, but that's a real good guess most people have. When you go out, let's say your school takes a busload of band members to a competition somewhere in the state, those instruments that they're carrying that are the school's property are no longer in the property. They are covered by what is called inland marine insurance, which means that equipment has moved and is in transit and is covered still by your insurance. Could be tools in one of the facilities, people's vans as well. It could be if you have mowers, if you mow your own grass at the schools and you're moving those from building to building on the street or on the sidewalk, those are still insured. It used to be, marine insurance is what they did when they insured cargo moving across the ocean back in the 1600s. Well, inland marine means on the land, moving cargo. It's weird, I know, that's what it's called.
They should rename it.
They should. Stuff moving on. We're an old organization, an old company. You don't change it very fast. General liability. General liability, you may know what that is. Bare minimum. It is a bare minimum. Anything that happens on or around your property or in association with your business not otherwise covered goes into liability. And anything is covered except what's excluded. It covers virtually everything except what is specifically laid out that is not covered. If a parent comes onto your football field, trips and falls, breaks a leg, general liability insurance pays for that medical. There's a vehicle in the school parking lot and it gets vandalized. General liability insurance. It's not going to be property because it's not your property. So if it's a student's or a parent's car on your property, it'll probably be, I am not a claims person nor am I an attorney, so I cannot guarantee or bind coverage, but I can tell you probably what's going to be there, but I can't guarantee it. Okay? Commercial auto. You all have auto insurance, right? These are your businesses, your schools, autos, buses, vans. Workers' compensation covers your workers when they're injured in the course of their active duties on the job. Does not include volunteers. Where would volunteers be covered?
General liability.
General liability. You are smart. I know that the education system is good, right? But sometimes, if you are you have associates in your schools, and you pay them a little bit of money, they're going to be covered, even if they're not full-time. If you compensate a coach, while they're in the course of those actions, covered under that if they're injured, even if they don't work for you in any other capacity. Another fun one, linebacker. Linebacker insurance. It is a coverage that protects you from mistakes. So if you make a bad decision, or your board makes a bad decision, and it affects somebody's other property, other industry, it's covered under this, what we call linebacker. When it's not in a school, it's called directors and officers coverage. So, and a lot of this happens when people sue and say they didn't get a good education. So, or a special needs, special ed student whose parents are not happy with the system and the program that you've set up, and they file a suit because they say you didn't provide equal or proper education for the child. It's going to go under that coverage and protect you from that lawsuit. It will protect also employees that unintentionally do acts, maybe they lost the money bag. They didn't steal the money bag, but they lost the money bag, and that act kept another group of people from getting the money. Now, if they intentionally did it, there is no coverage. A teacher that breaks the law, intentionally breaks the law, convicted or not convicted, is not going to be covered by these things. So a teacher that closes the door and abuses a student, that's a criminal act. There's no coverage for it. But what there is coverage under that is to protect the school in the courts, provide legal assistance, pay for legal assistance in that suit. They'll pay to protect the school district. They won't protect the intentional act person. Very broad coverage, very detailed. You can't think of everything that it covers or does not cover.
Jerry, can I ask you a question? On that?
Absolutely, please, all along the way.
How much liability insurance does a district normally carry in that linebacker D&O insurance? Is there a maximum, or?
There are maximums, but we're talking potentially some millions of dollars of coverage. And there are different ways to set up all this insurance. Sometimes we call it a package deal or a blanket deal, where we throw all this stuff in for one price, and an umbrella policy, like you might have at your house too, covers all of it as well, and so the limits just start to stack on top of each other. Where we're trying to push is that somebody had to get hurt to file a workers' comp claim, and we prefer, and I'm sure you would prefer, not to do that. So what we have are loss control and loss control services. And how we do that is we try to understand where these losses are occurring, try to explain that to you, explain what things can be done for each one of those. For example, slips and falls. Somebody wears flip-flops and slips and falls on the ice. Was it the flip-flops' fault? Probably not. There was ice on the ground. If the teacher had worn climbing boots, might have they still fallen? There's a very good possibility. So even if they had worn the right shoes, because there's ice, there's still a probability of loss. And the severity depends on a lot of things. Age, flexibility, athletic ability, whether they fell this way, whether they put a hand down. My wife was injured on a playground. She always wears winter boots. She's very careful, but she did slip and she put her hand down. When she hit the ground, she broke all this, just because she tried to catch herself. Had she gone like this and took it on her back, she probably wouldn't have broken her arm. Had she, might she have back injury? Possibly. But 8 years later, she still has all those plates and steel in her arm. So one of the things we try to express in this, and if you break that down further, you get something like this. This is the frequency. Where's the problem?
Slip and falls.
Slips and falls, by far. Let me give you some good news. You're not the only industry like that. Virtually every industry in the world, slips and falls are the #1 loss driver. And I'm always standing in your way, or am I not? So, but these are schools, so slip and fall, big winner or loser. What's the next one? Physically attacked. And what are you all thinking? What are you thinking?
A kid?
A kid. Absolutely. What kid?
Especially.
The parents who work with level 3 special ed.
Absolutely. Bites, punches, kicks, pushes. That's the leading reason of that number right there. Well, look how many a year we are having. About 4,000 a year. That's 2 or 3 at school every time.
Call that Tuesday.
I wasn't going to say anything about Mr. Will, but now that you brought it up.
What's your solution to that?
It is one of the hardest things we deal with the schools by far. There's solutions, very good solutions for everything. But that one is a fine line with parents as opposed to direct deposit. Maybe I'm narrowing it too much. But all the staff had to go to the administrative office to get their paycheck on this Friday. And there was an ice storm the night before. And 13 people fell down at the same spot getting their paycheck on that Friday. 13 employees. Because nobody go out and throw a little ice melt down. What is 13 times 12, 5? So, overexertion, also pretty, these are our #1s in schools right here for work comp that we always worry about. Overexertion, anybody know what overexertion is? Please, okay, you're all educators, no big exertion, so.
You're lifting something too heavy or.
Exactly, and where do those claims happen? Custodians and food service, maintenance. They're lifting or they're reaching too far. How many, if you go into your school's kitchen today, where are the big cans of tomatoes? On the top shelf. Why? Because the toilet paper or the napkins are on the bottom, right? Or right here in the sweet spot. The sweet spot is right here. You don't have to do much. Heavy stuff goes in the middle. The medium heavy stuff goes on the bottom, the light stuff goes on the top. Is when I'm reaching and bending and I need to grab a 20-pound can of tomatoes and I'm 5'4" and I'm standing on a milk crate because I don't have a ladder. These are real, folks. These are real. You know it. You've seen it. That's where we come up with our ergonomics programs, or anybody, any carrier, come in with an ergonomics program and say, if we just switch that, just move those things. If we don't use the top shelf at all, novel idea. We have a bunch of other stuff that don't amount to actually much when we get to it, but those are the big. So let's take that same thing and we'll talk about the money. So the last time was how many times it happened. Now is how much money we're paying for it. So we spend $90 million on work comp, and 34 million of it's right here. Slips and falls. Oh, there's overexertions. We also break it out for falls elevated, because those are when the custodial falls off the ladder. There's your physically attacked. They typically don't cost a lot of money. They're a bite, they're a poke, they're a punch. Contusions, abrasions, bite marks. They're low dollars, sometimes no dollar claims. 53% of all those claims that we get don't cost a penny. We encourage you to report everything because early reporting helps everybody. It helps the employee get medical assistance if they need it. If they don't need it, it's just a claim. Nobody pays. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost us anything. No harm in reporting a claim, even if you suspect nothing's going to happen. No problem with that. We encourage it. 36% medical-only claims. So the teacher fell, they hurt their arm, they went to see the doctor, the doctor said, you hurt your arm, don't do this. Wear a sling for a couple weeks, you're good to go. The red, the indemnity claims, means the employee had to leave work for a period of time, had to stay home, couldn't do their job. 11% of the frequency, 88% of your dollars. So, the remedy for that is called Return to Work Program. And very few people in your employ can't come, even when they're injured pretty good, broken leg, something major like that, can still come in and do some meaningful work. Custodians may not be able to do their exact job. They may not be able to wax the floor, clean the floor, dust, whatever it is. But could they come in and work on the safety program? Could they come in and monitor the students going in and out during bus? Could they do something? Bring them back as soon as the doctor allows, to the level that the medical doctor, not EMC, not you, not the employee, that the medical doctor says they can. We have seen people who have restriction from a doctor for the fact they simply can't lift more than 5 pounds be out for months. And the job didn't involve lifting anyhow. That's what drives that number up. So if you have a return to work program and you bring your people back when medically sound, when medically advised, to jobs that they can do. And one of the things I always wondered is, okay, how bad would you have to be for a teacher that couldn't come in and teach history class? It's got to be a real bad injury, right? You have to be bedridden. You have to have a head injury where you can't remember your name. But if you have a broken leg, can you teach history class? Yeah, you can. Sit behind a desk, right? That's why, you know, when my back got hurt at work, I was in there the next day because I sat at a chair at a desk before I stand in front of people and talk.
It'd be interesting to see if there's a correlation between the claims and teachers who have plans of assistance.
That have what?
That there aren't plans of assistance.
Low-performing teachers.
Oh, okay. That was not a term I was acquainted with.
Poor performing teachers or 504s.
Yes, that is a term I know. That's not our business.
I know. I'm just saying that
So I
aloud.
don't have- I
That'd be
don't
an
have that
interesting
information.
study.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like
But I
it's a
do know that there
Yeah.
is a pattern of teachers that, in any worker, it doesn't have to be a teacher. There is a pattern of people that have gotten injured and have got to stay home for 3 or 4 weeks, that they seem to get injured again for 3 or 4 weeks. Get injured again for 3 or 4 weeks because they learned the system. It's called fraud.
Now, Jerry, that return to work that you mentioned as
Yes.
a possible solution to this, is that something that has to be negotiated, or is that something in a master contract, or is that something if a district doesn't have one? There's models out there.
Well, we certainly have models for you, and we have people that do that professionally for a living, just helping schools set these up. They're nurse case people, they're RNs that help, and they're very touchy about Now, I don't know about contracts, but generally if you pay somebody for work, you can have them work. You also, I do know this, that if you offer what we call transitional duty, which means something other than your normal job, so we have the custodian who can't sweep the floor, but he can work on the right, that's a general number. So the longer they're out, the less likely they are to return, and they're less likely to return ever fully engaged back into their employment. If they're allowed to go 2 to 3 weeks, only about 75% even return to the job. And if you got over 6 weeks, 50% return to the job. Ever return to the job.
And
So
that's
the-
school specific, or is that,
That's countrywide, everybody.
within the context of schools though?
No, that would be
Yeah.
everybody we insure. That's a general number. So the longer they're out, the less likely they are to return, and they're less likely to return ever fully engaged back into their employment. And they say, I'm not going to do it, we can deny the claim. Because you have offered them transitional employment, and they said no, well then they're not really an employee anymore. Which also gets them back to work very quickly.
My experience is when you've had a workers' comp issue, I think there's some reluctance because superintendents, HR staff believe that they're actually increasing their liability when they have that person come back rather than getting something back and getting them back to work early. I don't think that's common knowledge out there.
And I think that is true. I think that is something that has been perpetuated over time that we certainly think is a myth. Because you certainly don't want to do something the doctor says that they can't do. That is when you get in trouble. So if the doctor says they can't lift over 5 pounds, and you tell the custodian to go grab that bucket of whatever, 5-gallon bucket of whatever that weighs 35 pounds, and they re-injure themselves because you told them, do not lift that bucket because it's over your restriction, and if you do, there will be disciplinary consequences. It takes a little work to get these things into place, but not a whole lot of work to get these things in place. And you have to follow the doctor's orders. We certainly don't want to re-injure them. You don't want to re-injure them. Sometimes they think they can do it, even though the doctor said no, and that's where you have to step in and say, you're not doing that.
So what happens if they do anyways? Let's say they lift the bucket, even though you told them not to, the doctor told them not to, they just decide to anyways and they hurt themselves.
We pay it again. You're always going to be covered. You're always going to be covered. That's why you don't want to pay it.
Even though that's intentional.
Even though it's intentional. Workers' compensation. These are typically buses, but not always. We have the Suburbans, we have the passenger vehicles, we have anything that's licensed for the road. Intersections. The accidents are happening in an intersection, controlled or uncontrolled. A lot of times it is uncontrolled intersections in rural areas where there are no stop signs, there are no stoplights, and they're just going down the road and somebody runs in front of them and they hit them. That's the biggest one. Running off the road, second highest. We get a lot of buses that just seem to leave the pavement. I don't know if they're trying to get them to fly or what they do, but well, I don't know about you, but I don't know that I want an 84-year-old person driving my children around the school bus.
Hard to find them.
I don't know the solution to that either, because I don't know how you people even find
We were
that.
just talking about that.
It's an impossible task with no answer.
Let
Well,
alone-
pay them more, so you find.
So now we're into prevention. What can you do? For workers' compensation, it's all about slips and falls and overexertions. These are what you need to do. Slip and fall assessments, you can do assessments yourself. You know what a pothole looks like. You know where the concrete's raised up on the sidewalks. You know if a floor is, you have people slipping on floors. You know whether you have mats in front of your doors that are long enough to keep the water off in the wintertime. You can do some of these things yourself. All your insurance companies should be able to also help you with these assessments to give you ideas of what to do better. But it's all about sidewalks and parking lots, what you're doing when it's winter weather out, shoveling quickly, ice melt, matting, proper shoes, floor cleaning, big, and what you're doing with teachers climbing up on stuff. Remember that one? Try not to get that. For food service, custodial, bus drivers, most of the ergonomics is about lifting stuff, where you're lifting it from, how heavy is it, does it have to be that heavy, do you have to put it on the top shelf? For your office workers, though, it's about how they're ergonomically set up at their desk. Eye strain, carpal tunnel are the things we see in school offices, just like we see in any other business offices. And you have a fair number of people that do that job. For property, roof maintenance. Did I show you the graph on property? Did we go over property? Well, I can tell you real quick. The number one loss drivers in property are hail, wind, hail, and wind, and hail, and wind, and there's some fire occasionally. The best thing you can do for hail and wind losses is keep your roofs good. Old roofs get damaged very easily in hail. Then you have leaky roofs, leaky tiles, mold, indoor air quality, workers' compensation, vicious cycle. Get your roofs repaired, get them replaced, have people check that the scuppers and the downspouts are clear from balls. They're not blocking it, making big swimming pools up there, which then we get some roof collapses sometimes. Flashing on the edges, very important. Make sure that's tied down because the wind catches that, rips off the flashing, which is holding down the field, which then the wind gets underneath the rubber end, peels it off. Most of them don't. We used to put what we call ballast up on roofs, rocks. We really don't do that a lot much now because one, it's a lot of weight, and when you have to repair it, it takes a lot to get it off. And back in the old days, we were working with tar, not polymers like we do today. So these new rubberized membrane roofs don't need that if they're properly adhered. Fire prevention. If your buildings aren't sprinklered, that's the number one thing you can do is have them put fire sprinklers in there. You'll get a credit for that in your property insurance. You get a different rate if it's sprinklered compared to non-sprinklered. And then anytime there is a fire, that will set off a single. It's not like the movies where they set a fire and all the sprinklers go off in the entire building. It doesn't work that way. There are each individual. I guess we're in a non-sprinkler building. Oh, I feel unsafe. I'm scared now. Each one goes off individually. They're independent of each other, and typically one sprinkler head takes care of any fire. Typically, if properly designed. The average is well in the 90s, the percentage of fires that get contained with one head. And if you go to two heads that open up, it's virtually all of them.
So does EMC, in conjunction with district personnel, do prevention inspections on a regular basis to kind of give some pointers to
We
district personnel?
Everybody that we insure, we have a cycle to personally visit them. I believe it's every 3 years now. So we will send somebody there to personally visit, walk through.
Every building?
Every building, most of the playgrounds. We're talking bus barns, everything. We're gonna walk through those. In the off years, we have a survey that we call a management survey. So that asks you, is your enrollment going up or down? Have you built anything new, which would be nice to know. How staffing levels going up or down? Whether you've implemented any of the programs like return to work or things like that, we send out a survey to try to keep us up to date. We have 4 individuals that cover the entire state of Iowa that just almost those schools. So they're going there. And it takes about 3 years to make the cycle. And that's just our regular. If you want services, if you want specific things, if you want some fall assessment, if you want ergonomics, you make that request to your agent, your local agent, who then can contact us and we can make special arrangements to come out and do special services, especially in the lost driver areas is very important to us.
And that falls into the price of your packaging, it's not
For us, it's all
included, right?
The only thing that there is ever any cost for anything we do is we offer a service called, used to be Rehab the Lab, now it's called Chemize, where we help schools remove hazardous waste, and you have to pay for disposal. And actually that can be several thousands of dollars at a time. But we found explosives, radioactive material, cancerous causing materials, shock-sensitive materials, all sorts of stuff in schools all over the country. So we don't get a lot of losses from it, but when it happens, they're big losses. So we'd much rather not have that shock loss. Flammable storage. Where are your custodians keeping the gasoline, paint thinners, anything that's flammable that they use? We go in, especially in winter, we'll go into a school and there'll be a snow blower inside the building with the 5-gallon can of gasoline right beside it because they don't want to put it outside where it's cold because it's harder to start. But 5 gallons of gasoline, I'm going to do the math wrong, but somewhere around 40, 45 sticks of gas, dynamite equivalent. So do you want 45 sticks of dynamite in your building? 5 gallons of gas, same thing. Same kind of spark. So, fire doors. Teachers love the front doors open. They love to. They love the ventilation. For security reasons, they like the outside ones open. Let everybody can walk in at any time. Housekeeping. Especially elementary, they love to put the artwork up, right? Everywhere. Paper covering everything. Not a good idea. It'll spread fire really fast if you have one. Now, what's the probability you have one? It's low. If you do, the severity goes up because it spreads it really fast. And the fire marshal has a strict rule of how much you can have too.
Student work in halls?
10%, I believe you're right. It's 10% of any wall can be covered with flammable material. Flammable or combustible. And that's not much of a wall.
That was I'm thinking my school's way over 10%.
Very seldom do we see below 10%. Yeah. In elementary especially. In high school, especially around homecoming.
Oh, yeah. Posters everywhere.
And you just
Posters, big rolls, what is that, craft paper they roll down the whole hall. Boy. We've seen them do stuff with the ceilings, which are covering up the sprinkler heads that they're bought and paid for. And they tie stuff to them. Don't tie stuff to sprinkler heads. That would be an accidental discharge, and you don't want that. Because, a typical school sprinkler head will push out 2,000 gallons a minute. And that's a lot of cleanup. Electrical overload. You saw, who was the school recently that's charging teachers if they bring in coffee pots?
Des Moines.
They're doing it because it's a lot of money to them on their electric bill. Well, we don't like to see it is you get a power strip, some residential power strip, you get a microwave, coffee pot, fan, heater, refrigerator, all plugged into that strip into one outlet, and it's like just waiting to catch fire because it's just too much power trying to be sucked through that little tiny cord and that little tiny plastic box. And so multi-strips are the devil to us because it allows you to plug 6 things into what used to be 1.
There's a reason there are 2 plugs in that plug-in. That's pretty much all it can handle, is 2 things. When you get to liability, slips and falls also big, so those assessments, they work for your employees and your guests. Accounting and receivable and money handling. A lot of schools don't have enough staff, so the office staff, they'll get the money in, they'll pay the money out, right? So they collect the money and they pay the bills. Same person shouldn't do that. Separation of duties. But we have dozens, if not hundreds of districts that just don't have that in place right now. And then we end up with a lot of temptation, and we do end up with a little bit of theft and fraud going into the schools. And people put their life at risk for $23,000 that they got a few $100s at a time. And then they get caught, and then for $23,000 over 30 years, now they're in prison. It's not really worth it. But the temptation gets too strong. And maybe they had, maybe they like Prairie Meadows. Maybe they like crack. I don't know what they like. Maybe they like crochet. Whatever it is that they need to spend their money on, that temptation gets to them. And if you don't have that automatic separation, hiring practices, background and reference checks. Everybody do background checks? Volunteers? Everybody that gets anywhere near a student? You check references? You actually call them? Talk to them?
Yep.
We got some shaking heads somewhere. We got people that aren't doing that still. The MVR checks we talked about, and interviewing. We get claims for people that are still interviewing in the Stone Age, asking women if they're pregnant, which becomes discrimination suit, asking women if they're married or if they're going to get married. We still have them. They still occur. And in your industry, with educated people, there are laws. And if you don't know what they are, you better find your attorney quick. And you better have planned interview questions, and don't let anybody deviate from those. Because stuff happens. Harassment prevention programs, anybody have those in your schools? Mandatory harassment prevention programs? If you don't, think about it. If you're an EMC insured and you want a program, there's one online that you can get for free, anybody can take. Actually, pretty soon anybody in the world can take it, whether you're insured or not. We have a harassment prevention training program available. Abuse prevention, child abuse. I think everybody has mandatory reporting. Everybody has child abuse. I think that one gets covered pretty well. Employment law. Employment law is so vast and varied. Get to your attorneys, talk about issues, because only they can give you the legal answers you really need. Job descriptions. Important part of a lot of things, and it's not just you need to have all the ADA stuff in there. You need to have the actual task, physical tasks above ADA. How much do they actually lift? What cognitive skills are required? Those things will be helpful for you in not only work comp cases, but if you start a return to work program, if you have a pre-work screening program. Anybody have pre-work screening?
What do you mean by that?
So let's say you're hiring somebody to be a custodian. Very easy example, but it's not just custodians. So you need a new custodian. And if you know what that job entails, you can, post-offer, pre-employment, you can have a test to see if they are physically capable of performing the minimums of the job.
Try it before you buy it.
Try it before you buy it. There's some legalities and there's some medical stuff that have to be followed, but it's really quite simple, and we can help you set those up too. But if you hire somebody that part of the job is to lift 30 pounds from the floor, which we'd like to eliminate by ergonomics, but let's say it does. And you hire somebody and they go into the test and they can't do that 6 times because that's how many times a day they're supposed to be able to do it. You want to hire the person that you know is probably going to get injured soon. because they are physically incapable of performing the minimums of the job. Or somebody that's been injured in somebody else's employment and now coming to you with the injury, you can legally post offer pre-employment based on their job description, very important part, what is laid out as their actual job, the actual tasks, the number of times, the repetitions, all these things. You can make these tests up, and you can then disqualify people that do not, either disqualify them or, under the Americans with Disability Act, accommodate for them.
So we have a district like a lift test that all associates need to pass, janitors, custodians, lunch, a lot of different employees, but the way we structure our associates, secretaries fall under that. So I know we had like a sub-secretary that wasn't cleared to work because she couldn't pass a lift test.
Right.
But with that job description,
There shouldn't be a lift test.
there shouldn't be a
There should be
lift
lifting in that job description.
But
Maybe
it
it's
falls
a 20-pound
under that
box of
umbrella.
copy paper may be in there, but not a 50-pound bag of salt.
Yeah,
So they really do have, those tests have to be specific to the job to be useful to you and probably legal. Now you're discriminating on something you can't discriminate on because that's not part of our job.
well, like box of paper.
20 pounds. But what's your
I don't know what the weight amount is for the lift test. And that's the thing is you don't take it.
But
teachers don't take it.
I mean, but a janitor's going to do more than that. I mean, they have to climb up a ladder.
Sure.
The associate office worker doesn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So should they be able to climb up a ladder? Yeah, they should be to do their job, right? So can they climb a ladder? Or are their knees already shot? You can't try it before you buy it. And get into a long-term relationship, which ends up in a work comp relationship, which ends up raising your mod, which costs us money, which then costs you money, which then costs the taxpayers. Which is right there, pre and post job out there. There's the functional capacity testing and pre-work screening, drug screening, and psychological exams. All fair game if done properly under law. Employment handbooks. There are a lot of employee handbooks that are just horrible. I just say it, they're just horrible. They're either outdated, they're incomplete, they're illegal in some cases, about what's still in them. So when you get that responsibility, you need to have somebody look at those employee handbooks a lot. And it better be somebody that knows something about employment law, probably. Student handbooks are getting touchy now too. So if we go to commercial auto, driver selection, big thing. That's the number one thing. Who's driving the bus? And that is about having the proper license, MVR checks, and your drug and alcohol testing. Which, if you have CDLs, commercial driver's license, that's part of that process already. Training them about what the biggest contributors are, intersections, backing, parking, defensive driving, those are all good for them. Vehicle maintenance is important, and there are strict laws about how buses have to be maintained when they have to be out of service, but it's far less of a cause of an accident than the driver itself, or the environment around the driver that they didn't properly react to. Having rules and regulations, especially distracted driving, text messaging, cell phone use should be forbidden while driving a bus. I mean, you still have radio, and you still have to do that as part of your job, but now you got both things going on a lot of times. We've all seen the videos of bus drivers in cities texting and slamming and stuff. Fatigue becomes an issue on field trips and athletic events, and weather is always, when do we not go? Making those decisions, which will be your job someday, of when, not only when we have school, but when do we go on that football trip, or basketball probably more than likely, because it's going to be inclement weather and now we're putting people at risk. And if they do have accidents or near misses, that'd be a near hit, getting those reported so you can study those and understand where you may need to add value, change policies, procedures, things like that. That's all I got. And I'm sorry. Slips and falls will hurt your employees, guaranteed somewhere down the line. So go in or have somebody else go in with an open eye, look at your facility and say, what can I do to reduce this hazard? A known hazard that's the leading loss driver, that is very costly, that affects more teachers and more administrators than anything else, probably a lot of them combined. So what can I do about that issue? If you can win that issue, you win a lot of other, because that culture builds. Now, when I'm out doing security consulting to schools, which I do a ton of, it's a culture thing. It always comes down to culture for security. And safety is also a